Hello everyone and welcome to the weight loss and emotional eating training, especially for men. And first of all, I need to apologize because I made a course for women on how to quit emotional eating, how to deal with these deep-lying emotional issues that make us crave for food, crave for sugar, etc. Now, many of you contacted me, men and women alike, and said that, hey, it's an issue with men just as well as with women. Why are you making a course just for women? And you're right. You're right, because emotional eating is a problem for lots of men just as well as for women. It's a bit different. It has different shades, colors, so to speak, but the main reason is the same. We tend to use eating to reduce stress, to reduce emotional tension, and to get that feeling of control, which is actually just an illusion, because we get out of control. And now in this course, I will address these issues and I will focus it especially for you guys, for men, and for your problems. Okay, so let's start. If you want to lose weight and if you want to be able to control your weight, you need to address two things, always two things, and it's the body and the mind. So you need to have these two work together, hand in hand. If you don't solve the body issue, you won't be able to solve the mind issue. So these two have to go hand in hand together. First, we will talk about the body part, okay? So what you need to know about your body, about how fat is gained, and why we usually fail at diets, trying to lose weight. So, first of all, and it's not my ideas, I will link you Dr. Jason Fung's works. You will be able to research that and go into depth. But here I can give you a summary, okay, to save your time. So how does this start? First, we had that idea, that model of the less calories I take, the more weight I lose, right? So here was the body. It's a pretty body, right? And here was the calorie intake, what we eat, and here is the calorie out, which is the energy that we burn, so the calories that we burn. This is fire, okay? So we supposed that the less we eat, so let's suppose I won't eat that turkey, okay? I will eat apples and carrots and whatever instead. So I reduce the calories. And I hoped that in this case, my body weight will be reduced. It's a very simple equation, right? Now, what happened is that people started to lose weight, right? We all have been through this. We lose weight for some time, like for the first 6 months, and then comes a plateau. So we start to lose weight. I will draw it here. This is weight, this is time. We start to lose weight, but then we plateau. We are not able to lose anymore. And what happens then is usually weight starts to come back. Either it comes back slowly, bit by bit, or it just boom, it's there. Even it's quite often that we gain more weight than where we started. Okay, so this is where the yo-yoing begins, and we start this dieting cycle. It's very frustrating. and at the end we feel guilt. We increase our emotional tension, so that leads to further cravings, to further eating problems, and the cycle just continues and it really erodes our health. Now, Dr. Jason Fung asked himself, what is happening here? Why is it that so many people start to lose weight, but it's always at a cost? So they plateau and they go back. There are some exceptions, but we will come back to that, why those exceptions exist. It's not because they just decreased their calories. So, okay, no more turkey. I will eat apples instead. It didn't work that way. So what happened here is that the body is very intelligent. Really, it's such an intelligent mechanism. What it does, as you reduce the calories, it will reduce the energy that it burns. So it reduces the amount of energy that it burns to maintain your weight. This is called the set weight, okay? I hope you can read this. So this is called the set weight. It's like a program, a default weight in our system. So the body and the whole hormonal system does everything to protect its initial weight, its set weight. As you start to eat apples or whatever, you reduce your calories and you do more exercise, your metabolism slows down. This means that you will burn less energy. And if here you used to eat 2000 calories and you burned, let's say, 1000 or whatever calories, then you reduced your calorie intake to 1500, for example, calories. And you started doing exercise hoping that you will burn more. But instead, even with the reduced meals, the reduced amount of food that you take, you start to gain your weight back because you start to burn less and less energy as your body adjusts. You know, here is this adjusting period. This is the time until in which this here is that time in which your body adjusts to this new kind of diet, to the reduced calorie intake, and it will then burn less energy. So you will start to regain your weight. And as I said, exercise is very good, but exercise also slows down your metabolism. And this is where our problems start. Now, Jason Fung, he introduced another model, another system, which is called the two-compartment model. And this is the following. You know, imagine that there is, let's use a different color for this. Imagine that in your body there are two compartments. One is the liver, which we will call the fridge, okay? And there will be the fat compartment. So L like liver, and here is the fat. I will draw it here, okay? So here you have a fridge, right? This will be your liver. So whenever you eat, it's like you are going to the grocery shop, you are buying yourself food, and you are storing your food in the fridge. It is right here. Now, whenever you shop, you fill up your fridge, but if you shop more, there will be a certain amount that doesn't go into the fridge, so you need to store it somewhere, and that will be your freezer. Okay, so it's your freezer, let's say in the basement. F like freezer and F like fat. So you bring home your food, you eat, you put the food into the fridge, and whatever is left that you can store in the fridge, that goes into the freezer, that is into the fat storages. Why do you have these two compartments? That's the first question. Because your liver is able to store glycogens, which are chains of glucose. They can be burnt very fast. You can store them fast, you can burn them fast. So it's a very fast in and out storage. The freezer is more complicated, so it takes some time and energy to store the fats, to store energy in form of fats. So it's very intelligent because your body wants you to have quick access energy and also a stored long-term energy, right? Right. In this case, what happens? Why can't I access this fat and just burn it? You know, I burn the food in the freezer, so I lose weight. And here is the problem. Insulin. Here is our insulin. It allows energy to be stored as fat, but it doesn't allow this fat to be burnt and come down. So you need to decrease your insulin, and then as you decrease insulin, your fat storages will free the energy that is stored here, and it will be then burned. Okay? So this is the model that Dr. Jason Fung introduced, and I find it fascinating because this explains this whole problem. And now we will address some issues that usually most of all men have with this. Because how can you reduce your insulin? By fasting. Whenever you don't eat, your insulin starts to drop. Most food, even proteins, they contain a certain amount of carbohydrate, or they are a certain amount will be burnt as carbohydrates. So they will increase your insulin. In very simple terms, if you eat, your insulin will go up. When you don't eat, your insulin goes down. Now, your insulin needs some time to really go down and to be for your blood to get rid of the excess insulin, and only then these fat storages will open up. So the answer is fasting. Okay? And the problem that mostly men have with fasting is the fear of losing muscle. Now, this is mostly a myth. So people think that once I'm fasting, that is, I'm not eating, right, for a day or for several days, then my body will burn muscle. It's not true. What happens is, let's put it this way, this is time, and the days of fasting, right? First, we will burn carbohydrates, sugar, and then this sugar goes down because there will be no more carbohydrates in the blood, and we will burn the carbohydrates, the glycogens in the liver, so it will go down, right? And then after a time, we will need to switch over to some other energy form, and that will be the fats. So during the first period, really first 24 hours, 36 hours, depends, you hardly burn any fat, but then you start to burn more and more fat. And that's where our set weight starts to change, and that's where we start to lose weight. And as I said, so this is fat, okay? And this is carbohydrates. And as I said, men are afraid of losing muscle. So in reality, in these first few days, there is a little peak of protein burning, but it's not muscle. It is a process called autophagy, when we are burning dead cells in the body, damaged cells, all kinds of proteins that are in the body, dead tissue, so such kind of things. So this is a very positive phenomenon actually, because we get rid of toxic dead cells, right? Dead proteins. So it's not coming from the muscles first, but it cleans out the system. And then it will stay more or less the same. So we are not burning muscle. It wouldn't make any sense actually, because if you think of cavemen, why would they gain weight and then burn their muscle? If that wouldn't make any sense, humanity would not be able to survive that way. If you look at animals, for example, bears, they gain weight and they do that to enable themselves to survive the winter. And that's when they are losing the fat. So fat is the storage of energy. That's how we are designed. It's really a fantastic system. So you will not be burning muscle, you will be burning fat. So we have now the answer. Fasting will speed up our metabolism. It actually does speed up metabolism, M. So we will burn more energy. Why does this happen? Just again, think of cavemen. So we are designed as animals, as humans as well, to survive certain periods where there is no food. That's why these fat storages were created. Now, if there is a period where we don't eat and we would feel, we would burn less and less energy. What comes with that? We have less energy to move, we are tired, we are just drowsy, we feel cold, etc., etc. So, would we be able to survive in such a state? No. That's why the body switches, turns the heat on. It starts to burn energy. It starts to secrete adrenaline and hormones to activate your whole system, to make you able to hunt and to find food, to survive. So the periods where we didn't eat as humans, those were the most active periods because we were hunting, we were out there in the nature trying to get some food. So that's what happens with fasting. Actually, I like fasting, and I usually do not for losing weight. I used to do that for losing weight, but now I do that to gain a clarity, because your mind will it gets a boost. It will be so much clearer. You will think much faster. So your possibilities will open up for you if you do some fasting. Just believe me, it's amazing. That's one of the reasons why I do that. So we know that fasting is an answer, but here comes the but. Why can't we do that? Many people can, but many people have problems. And here is where the mind comes into play. The brain, the mind. You know, our brain has a logical side, the logical brain, and the emotional brain, subconscious, and so on. Our mind is programmed. We programmed it, and our environment programmed it. We created certain habits, eating habits. We created certain belief systems about eating. We created a certain relationship to food, to ourselves as well. And we also have a problem here, deciphering and interpreting the signals that the body sends. So these are the four main issues, so to speak, okay? So first, habits. And we will go deeper into each one of them. Habits. Second, belief systems. Beliefs about eating, about what's good, what's not good. It's all programming. It's really all mind programming and conditioning. So, habits and beliefs. These are complete belief systems. Three, misinterpretation and misreading of body signals. Body signals. And 4, this is my favorite topic, emotional eating. So this is emotional eating. And before we start with all this, remember that the rational mind is responsible for about 5% of your brain activity. 5%. It controls 5% of your brain activities. What happens with the rest, the 95%? These 95% are controlled by your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind controls 95% of your energy, or maybe even more. Because the subconscious mind is responsible for your emotional reactions. Emotions are energies. So all these, and the nervous system as well, belongs to the subconscious mind. So the subconscious mind controls most of your energy. What happens when we try to do some fasting, or we stick to the old model and we try to reduce calories and we do some dieting? What does then happen? We face the monster under the bed. Here, these 95%, it's like a tsunami. So you try to resist sugar, you don't eat fat food, whatever you try to stick to. And as soon, you use your willpower, of course, and you think, wow, I'm really bringing all this willpower, I will do this time. And what happens? Whenever the smallest crack on your willpower appears, and it will appear, because your rational mind is just a surface. Your rational mind gets tricked very easily by the subconscious. So whenever you feel exhausted, for example, or emotionally triggered, or you are stressed out, your rational mind starts to, flicker. It can't completely control the system, and that's when the crack appears, and your subconscious will break down the walls and come at you like a tsunami. So it's very, very hard to fight these 95% of raw subconscious energy. What are these energies actually? Most of them are emotional energies, tensions. We will go into that a bit later. Let's talk about habits first, okay? So let's go through these first. So habits, what kind of habits do we have? Oh, we have so many. If you have a pen and paper, just prepare it for yourself and start to write down your own habits. I will just list a few. Marketing makes us consume. It programs our mind. For example, you buy extra large portions at McDonald's or wherever because they give you the feeling that you win if you buy more. So this is a small emotional trigger. Everyone wants to feel successful, right? Everyone wants to feel that they are winning something, they are getting something more than just simple, just in a simple transaction, right? We want to win. So they condition us to buy more. They condition us to buy sugary things. So the food industry is very much aware of the fact that sugar is addictive. It is addictive, and it's not just some idea. It has been proven. Sugar is addictive, so they will try to sell you things with sugar inside, even if it's not so obvious, like healthy yogurts with fruits, right? They will put a lot of sugar into that, so you become addicted to sugar. And then a vicious circle begins, because sugar addiction will give you, first, like with addiction, usually you get high, so you get those hormones, those feel-good hormones, and then you get low, and you start to repeat the cycle to feel good. With sugar addiction, actually, you can produce the same hormones, or even more intense hormones, simply by using your mind. You can trigger these hormones. So these are habits like eating late at night, eating before sitting before the television, because when you are sitting watching television, your rational mind just switches off, or it's in standby mode, right? And your subconscious is open. That's why they are playing all those ads for you. You are more susceptible to suggestions. And when your subconscious mind is more open, you are no longer controlling what you are eating, how much you are eating. You're just a few pieces of, I don't know, chips or whatever, but you no longer are in control of how much you eat, what you eat, etc. It becomes an automatic thing. Then TV, cinema. So when we go to a cinema, that's again just a habit. We need to eat popcorn, we need to drink Coke. So this is again just programming. It's not something that our body truly needs. It's just a habit. Then it can be social eating. It's again a habit. You must have been in situations at parties or at conferences where just because you were with people, with friends, with family, you were eating much more than you needed. Because it's a social thing, it's just so, I won't leave the plate empty and not eat just because I'm conscious or aware of my eating habits, whatever, right? We don't want this conflict. We don't want to bring this tension into this environment. So what we do is usually we overeat. What can we do in these cases? Well, there are a few small tips and tricks. You can eat much slower than you usually do. Now, when we are engaged in a conversation often, or watching TV, or watching a movie, we are eating without being in control how fast we eat, and how much we eat. So if you start to become aware of slow eating and how delicious it can be, how good it feels to be in control of the speed of your eating, of the quantity of what you eat, on the quality, etc. So in this party you can just slowly eat. Your plate will look full for a long time, so no one will really see this as a problem. So you're not sitting in front of an empty plate, right? So there are a few tricks, and you need to know your own environment. You need to know your own family and friends, and how you can apply these things, how you can bring in awareness into your eating, because every culture is different. And I know you guys are from all over the world. I have seen from India and the US and England and Australia. So cultures are different. But let's take, for example, the Russian culture. It's very often a table full of different dishes, lots of different dishes, and also drinks as well. And you always need to have something in front of you and look like you eat. So you can look like you eat, but in very small quantities at a time, so very slowly. And with that, you contributed to the atmosphere. So you are engaging in conversations, you are having fun, you are laughing, and you are accepting food. It's very important. Many cultures feel that you are rejective if you are not taking food. So you are accepting food, but in small quantities, and you become pickier. Okay, so you say, I would rather take more of this and a bit less of that. Okay, so it's up to you. You need to work on it a bit, practice, and find the best way for you. Another bad habit is, for example, a bad habit. It's not bad, but it can be harmful for you if you try to lose weight or you are fasting. If you eat bread, for example, it's again the Russian culture. We eat bread with soup, with potatoes, with fries, with vegetables. Always, always. Bread is holy. So these are habits. Now let's go over to beliefs. Just a moment. I need to take my notes. So let's go over to beliefs. This is again conditioning. It comes from the culture, from your family, from friends, everywhere. It's coming from the environment. So what beliefs are there? For example, you have to eat. You know, since the war, we are so scared. If you don't eat, you will die. You will lose weight. Oh God, you will be sick. So that's an actual example. One of my friends had a grandma, you know, and since the war, she was a child when the Second World War happened. And she was just so anxious about food. Her relationship with food was that of a lacking. And she said that she used to repeat it to him when he was a small child, about 3 or 4 years old, that you will get sick if you don't eat, or you will get sick if you lose weight. And believe me, he repeated, so he executed this program. Whenever he started to lose weight, he got sick, because it was programmed in his mind that he will have to get sick if he lost weight. So you have to eat, one of my favorites. Or you have to have breakfast. You just have to. It's a must. So it's again a cultural thing. And I remember my mother used to tell me that all the time, you have to eat something for breakfast, otherwise you will get weak, or you will get sick, or your stomach will hurt, etc., etc. These are beliefs. And when I started to listen to my own body, I realized that my body doesn't like breakfast. So it likes to start, so it's inactive. It keeps itself inactive in this digestive period, or I don't know how to call that. So it wants to eat after 11 or 12 o'clock. Whenever I eat before that time, I just get tired. I just don't feel so energetic, and it's not a good feeling. I'm just heavy and drowsy and so on. So you need to listen to your own body, and here we will go to body signals and interpreting them correctly. So these kind of beliefs, these are conditioning, and they determine our relationship to food very, very much. So write down your own beliefs, like, for example, really, you have to eat for breakfast, or you have to eat everything on your plate. That's a belief. That's a programming. Or you have to eat a lot for dinner. Or some believe that you have to eat like a king in the morning and eat little in the evening. Or it can be all sorts of different beliefs, and it very much depends on your own culture, from where you come from. So start to write it down, even those things that you believe are true, but still write them down, and then later just think about them. Think if that's really the case, if that's really true. And let's talk about body signals and how to interpret them. Now, we hear a lot that we need to listen to our body. We need to listen to the needs of our body. Sometimes we misinterpret the signals. When the body wants to drink, it needs water. and we misinterpret that sign as hunger, and we eat instead of drinking. Now this is true. This is absolutely true, but there is an issue with the body and the body signals, and this issue is the noise. Actually, there is a lot of noise in our nervous system, and that's a problem. This noise is, for example, sugar addiction, habits that create a sugar addiction. Sugar addiction creates a noise, so these cravings, because in your blood sugar will go up and down and up and down. What happens is that you eat something sweet or something with a lot of carbohydrates in it. It doesn't need to be sweet. It can be Coke. It can be some sweet thing, or it can be anything with a lot of carbohydrates that can be triggering your blood sugar. What happens is your blood sugar, where should I put it? Let's put it here. Okay, so this is your blood sugar level. You eat something, you drink a Coke, okay? Let's put it simple. Your blood sugar goes up. Then your insulin, this insulin here, kicks in, and your blood sugar goes down. Then at that moment when your blood sugar goes down, you feel that your body gives you a signal, but it comes as hunger, so it will be interpreted as hunger. Hands shaking, cold sweat, whatever. And then what most of us do, we drink something sugary or we eat something sweet because we are craving for something sweet at that moment, or most of us crave for sweet. There are some people who crave for salty things, so it happens. And then blood sugar goes up, and it starts this cycle of up and down, this yo-yo of blood sugar. So that's why there will be a lot of noise. It can be emotional noise, stress, tension, and we can't really tell what we want, and we can't really tell what our body truly wants. We just feel all sorts of things, and you can say that, well, if I listen to my body, then I would eat a whole cake at once, or I would just drink a whole glass of wine. So this is the noise. These are the cravings, and the noise is also emotional. So these subconscious drives, for example, it can be a craving for alcohol as well, which will override the true, real signals of your body. So it can be a craving for whatever that you suppressed. And we will come then to emotional issues. And then you will see how all this is connected. So you need to just lower the noise. How can you do that? Fasting helps a lot. So when you do fasting, you clear your body, you clear your blood, and you also clear your mind. If you do meditations, it helps a lot. When you do meditations during fasting, it will trigger feel-good hormones like endorphins and so on. You will feel much calmer and much better. So when you want to hear the signals, the true, real needs of your body, then you can do a fasting, it helps, and meditation, and emotional work. So working on yourself, working on your emotions. working on your sugar addiction as well if you have that issue. So that's how you start to become of different signals. The cat is feeling lonely. So one of these signals is water. I want water, give me water. What you do is you eat usually, or I used to do the same. Your body can tell you that it needs minerals, it needs potassium, or it needs magnesium, it needs all sorts of minerals, right? And we can interpret that as hunger as well. It can be that your body needs salt. Sometimes the body needs salt, and we interpret that as I would love some chips. Okay, so we might misinterpret that and just take a lot of calories, take a lot of carbohydrates and flavors and all sorts of chemicals that are included in that package, simply because we misinterpreted the signal of the body, which just wanted some salt. It can be that you have some issues with your stomach acidity. So stomach acids are essential, but their balance can be damaged. And that's when you feel that you have too much acids, right? Sometimes it feels like a heartburn, sometimes it's just a spasmic feeling, or just a discomfort in the stomach. Most of the cases it's low acid, low acidity. I will link some videos where doctors are talking about this issue. I won't go deep into that, but you need to remember that if you have any discomfort and any issues with your stomach and stomach acidity, you need to look deeper into that, okay? And maybe even look for some medical help. So it can be a signal. For me, usually after I eat processed food and with glutamates, whatever, so this Chinese food or very processed food, I have sometimes these stomach acidity problems, or my stomach feels bad about that food. So that's another signal that we misinterpret as hunger, and we eat more, when in fact it's an irritation or acidity problem. Your body can also send you a signal when your energy level is low, when you need rest, when your energy is depleted. I'm not talking about energy as fat storage, but your energetic system is depleted. And many of us, it's usually after a longer stressful period, and many of us will compensate with food, which makes things even worse. What we would need to do then is just rest and relax. So food is just an additional stressor at that point, an additional burden on the system, which will just relax and let go and just be in a passive state, right? So that can be again a point where we misinterpret the sign. The body will store that energy because it is not really needed and in that moment, so it will just store it as fat. And whenever we are stressful, as I said, the level of cortisol in the blood will go up. And the cortisol is a hormone which helps us to gain weight around the waist. So if you have these fats here, around the waist, around the stomach, then you need to lower your cortisol levels. So relaxing more, and it's not always food that your body wants. Become aware of the true, real needs of your body. And sometimes it's just sleep. It sounds ridiculous, but we can misinterpret this sign of body. When the body wants to go to sleep, when it wants to just switch off, and we compensate that with food. It happens with people who wake up very early, too early. For example, they have to go to work and they wake up at 5 a.m. for example, and the body is not yet in that phase. It didn't have its full rest. So again, the energy level is low, and we try to compensate it with food. And that's not really a good solution. We need to rest more and relax more. And the more you relax, the more you sleep, actually, the less you want to eat. It has been shown in several researches that sleep, the amount of sleep that you have, and the amount of energy that you burn, and the amount of food that you want, that you crave for, they have correlation. And again, the blood sugar, okay, so that is again a signal. We have talked about this. When blood sugar goes up and down, we feel as if, oh, I'm hungry, let's eat. And then we eat, blood sugar goes up, and the usual cycle begins. And now, finally, let's go to my favorite topic, emotional eating, because it's so fantastically interesting. Emotional eating. So, one of the most important aspects is that since our birth, we are conditioned to connect certain emotions with food. Just think about loneliness. When a baby is born and it feels alone because the mother can't be always there, so the baby feels alone. What does it do? It starts crying, right? It sends a signal again. It starts crying, and what does the mother do? Usually mothers feed it. So loneliness will be from a very early age connected to food, to eating. It is also connected to all these sensations that we have as little infants, as newborn babies. So we feel discomforting feeling, the skin of the mother, love or acceptance, and all these good positive feelings, they get connected to feeding. So whenever we eat, we don't feel lonely anymore. So this comes from a very early age. And whenever we feel stressful as babies, whenever we cry, we have the same reaction. So our mother feeds us. And I will leave that there. So loneliness. Loneliness, safety. So when we are stressed, when we cry, when we feel uncomfortable, it's all connected with stress hormones. Safety, feeding comes, and the affection of the mother. Even if the mother was unable to show this affection, food was mostly there, okay? So food was always connected to loneliness, to this feeling of safety, comfort, and anxiety. Safety is a lack. So when we felt anxiety and we want to feel safe, that's when we cried, and that's when we got some food. These feelings come from very early age. But what happened later as we were growing up? Of course, it depends on the culture from which you come, but mostly when we felt hurt, maybe emotionally or physically. When we felt hurt, we cried. You know, as children, we mostly used crying because that was a natural outlet of our distressed energies. So when we felt hurt, maybe we cried, or we just it could be seen, it was obvious. And adults often in many cultures try to comfort the child, and comfort often comes with food, right? Love. Love is very, very strongly associated with food. Again, because mother love, feeding, breastfeeding, it all comes from the moment of birth. Even if the mother was not able to give love, still from early childhood, most of these feelings would be connected with feeding. So, but of course there can be different other issues, emotional issues, attachment issues there. But let's suppose a positive case when the mother was loving. So there was love, comfort, warmth, affection, and feeding. This is natural. It's not a problem. This is natural. But we need to become aware why we turn to food so naturally whenever we feel hurt. When we felt as small children, for example, we played out somewhere in the grounds and we fell and we cried, and someone came, mom, dad, someone, and comforted us and gave us some treats, some chocolate, whatever. We felt physical pain, but the mind cannot distinguish between physical pain and emotional pain, so it triggers the same mechanism. In this case, if there was a conditioning, like if I feel hurt, then I received some food or some sweets, then we are more likely to use this same mechanism for eliminating or reducing emotional pain. So this can also be a very typical case. Oh, self-love. In many cases, in many cultures, love was expressed through meals, right? Like the families together and eating together. Now, let me bring you an example to make this clear. There was a family where the father was very strict, and he had 4 sons, and it was not allowed for the mother to spoil the boys, to spoil the kids. So he liked, discipline, and that things are in their places. And then the mother, not having any other way to express her love, because in this family, expression of love meant weakness or spoiling, something negative, you know. Don't make pussies from these kids. So the mother had no other choice as to express her love through feeding. Have you eaten enough? Just eat some more. So she was overfeeding her sons because that was her only way to express her love. And you see, this is love again. And people who come from such an environment, or who have somehow conditioned themselves to receive love in form of food, then in this case, so love means food. In this case, if they lack self-love because they feel ashamed of themselves, because, for example, in this family, the father was so strict, he was so demanding, he was never really approving, he was very, very critical, right? So the boys, all four of them, to a different degree, but they all felt that they are not worthy of love. They had a lack of self-love, lack of self-worth, lack of self-confidence, which they expressed in different ways, but still there was a lack of self-love. So food became an obvious substitute, an obvious compensation. So it will become a compensation for self-love. It's not just the boys. Girls have the same problems because we are emotional beings. It's natural. So lack of self-love can lead to compensation in form of food. Then another interesting story from the same family, self-destruction. Overeating can also be a way of self-destruction. It is an addiction. There was a man who was morbidly obese, and he very strongly hated himself. He hated his own guts, so to speak. He couldn't forgive himself for not being able to achieve his ideal, what he was supposed to be. Like he betrayed his family, as if he betrayed his father. Now the father was a very demanding man, and his son was just different. His father was a military officer, high-ranking military officer, and what his family didn't know is that he himself had self-worth problems. And he always needed some validation, some source from outside that would validate that he is worthy, that he is someone, that he has achieved something, that he's good enough. For him, status was the validation that he needed, that outside source, that thing that told him that, okay, now I'm okay. Of course, he was never quite... the cat is feeling lonely, you see. They are emotional beings too. So, he was never really confident fully in himself, because he always needed these outside signs. For example, that his family obeyed him without questioning, that his wife always supported him and never ever said anything or questioned, anything that he said. So his son wasn't aware of the deep rooted issues of his father with his own self-worth. So he just took these ideas, these belief systems of the father, and he tried to live up to all those expectations, tried to create the same status or even a higher status, which he was not able to because he was a very different person. He couldn't really let go of these ideas, and he felt very ashamed and guilty of betraying his father, of not being able to live up to those expectations, and he started to punish himself. It became a self-destructive pattern, self-destructive behavior. He used food like an addiction. It was very much like alcohol in his case, or drugs, where he truly tried to destroy himself, to destroy the self that he so much hated and couldn't forgive. Now he needed a lot of work to realize that he needed to forgive himself. There are many cases like this, not necessarily morbid obesity, so not necessarily self-destructive, but we will have something to gain from that weight, and we need to be aware of that very much. So with emotional eating, this thing is called secondary gain. Let's put it in green. Secondary gain. Secondary gain is something that we gain from our weight or from our condition. It doesn't have to be the weight, actually. It can be an addiction, a condition, an illness even, whatever. Secondary gain is something in the subconscious part of the mind, a program that goes against our conscious idea that we want to lose weight, right? So here, in the conscious part of the mind, in these 5%, we have all these arguments. For example, that being overweight is not healthy. It's damaging, actually. It's damaging my health. Being overweight reduces my chances to find a partner, or it's just uncomfortable because I can't do what I want, I can't do sports, I can't move freely, etc., etc., etc. Here are all these ideas that we have about why losing weight is so good for us. Now, here comes our subconscious mind and all those ideas that go against our will. This is the subconscious agenda. For example, there was a man, again, he was about 30-ish, living with his mother, and he was very overweight. First, because his mother wanted to have him there near, so it was an attachment, a very strong bonding, which was no longer healthy. She didn't want to let go of her little son. So what happened? She was feeding him, as showing love, of course, and also to keep him as a baby, so in the role of her baby, not letting him to fly out of the nest, right? So the boy was eating and he was accepting that, and he was living with his mother up until a point where he was so overweight and so unhappy because he wanted a relationship and he couldn't really go out. He lacked self-confidence. He lacked confidence because he didn't look good. He felt that he wasn't attractive to women, and also because he had issues with himself, of course. And what was his subconscious program? As he looked deeper into himself, he found that if he would lose weight, and this will be very important, if he would lose weight, he would need to take the responsibility for his life. Because if he would lose weight, he would meet girls. If he would lose weight, he would have to leave his mother. These were the ideas in his subconscious mind. And that's why his fear, deep here in the subconscious, there was the fear of taking responsibility. There was the fear of starting something new. The fear of confronting his mother, because he needed to set himself free. And that would have meant a conflict with the mother, because the mother wanted to keep him there, and he subconsciously also wanted to stay, but on the other hand he was also ready to move on, and he wanted a life. So this is just one example. Another example, that it was a woman, it was actually a woman who was very overweight, and she didn't even go to dates, or if her mother forced her to go and meet someone who maybe could start a relationship with her, then she just sabotaged herself. And she found out, as she started to dig deeper into the emotional background of her eating, that in her subconscious mind there was a fear, again, fear of a relationship. It turned out that she had issues with her father. Her father left the family, and she was afraid of being abandoned, a fear of abandonment, a fear of a close, intimate relationship, of a bond, a love. So she surrounded herself with this weight. She built a fortress of her body just to protect herself. Now there was another, it's quite a common issue actually. Another woman, well, she was sexually harassed when she was young. So she again used her body to stay away from men and keep men away from her. So she used her body not to be attractive. So the excess weight was a way to not be attractive. On the other hand, of course, these women wanted a relationship, but their fear here in the subconscious mind was stronger than their desire to have a partner or have a family. So the fear of rejection, we cannot underestimate these fears. The fear of rejection, the fear of abandonment, they come from a very early age. And if we had some trauma in the past, then again trauma is carved into the subconscious mind, and we need to process that. So these are a few examples. Another important thing that we need to remember is that emotions, all these emotions, whatever happened in the past, they need to be processed, and that's where men especially have problems. I'm sorry guys, but it's part of the conditioning of how mothers raise their boys. It's that men mostly try to suppress their emotions, or those emotions that are considered maybe culturally or in that environment negative or not manly. They will suppress that. And certain emotions will be okay. For example, anger is more accepted if for men. If men express their anger, it's more accepted. So men will tend to express anger, not to process, not necessarily process, but to express it. And they will suppress, for example, sadness. While women, they will suppress anger. Oh, boys, you don't know how many angry women are there in the world with suppressed anger. Yes, it's scary. And they will allow sadness on the surface. So they will express sadness and suppress anger. Now, these are generalizations, of course, but you get the overall picture. So there are emotions which we accept, we are allowed to express, and there are emotions which either they don't fit into our self-image. For example, if you are a very spiritual person, then you might, even as a man, suppress anger because your self-identity that you have created as a very spiritual person contradicts the feeling that you have. It's very common actually, truly, with spiritual people that they suppress their anger. May even just anger will be suppressed. They will be seething inside, but they will try to let go of it, mostly suppressing it, not processing it, right? And they will try to turn their focus to love and light, etc. That's why I'm repeating it again. We need to process emotions and not suppress or just express. What happens when we express emotions, when we express anger, for example? When we express anger, of course, we do some damage around us, maybe physical, but maybe emotional. We hurt our family members, our wife, whatever, or the dog or the cat. What do we do when we suppress our sadness? For example, if you guys are prone to suppress your sadness, what do? You swallow it. Many emotional eaters among men, they are swallowing their sadness. It's an interesting thing actually. We talked about aggression and sadness. These two are the two sides of the same coin. So if you experience too much aggression or too much sadness, then look around and try to feel the other side of this coin within you. Somewhere there is the sadness buried within you, or the aggression suppressed within you. Now, grief and loss. Many men who experience a breakup, experience a divorce, they go through a very stressful times. They will either lose a lot of weight or they will gain a lot of weight. You know, it's a time of instability. Why do we lose weight in such times? Sometimes it's just the stress. You know, I'm just laughing because some people say, oh, you're lucky, whenever you are stressed you lose weight. Yes and no. Yes and no. So there are some people who in times of stress they tend to lose weight. They become like this simply because they are unable to eat. Their stress will block eating. So their stress will be very strong and they will be unable to eat. They feel like, oh God, I'm sick. I can't even take it. Others will try to compensate. Remember, eating is reducing stress to a certain degree. So when we eat, the chewing in itself, so the activity, and the sugar, the carbohydrates, everything, it creates a certain good feeling. You know, it triggers positive hormones or feel-good hormones, let's call them this way. It gives a positive, a good feeling, an illusion of fulfillment, but only for a short time, because then as it goes down, and it always goes down very fast, very, very fast. Guilt kicks in, a sensation of being out of control kicks in, because we know, even subconsciously, that we have lost control. We were not in control. So we will try to overcompensate that. It can be over-controlling. Over-controlling is actually a loss of control. So anyone who's very rigid, very over-controlling, trying to be everywhere at the same time, trying to see and control others, and control how others feel, how others think, what others do, they are feeling out of control themselves. That leads again to eating issues. And very often people like that have these emotional eating patterns. So you need to look into yourself. What of these is applying to you? So I would like to repeat that fear is one of the strongest. Feeling of safety, anxiety, hurt, pain, loss, grief. Again, a reason for emotional eating and can kick this whole mechanism in. Love and self-love issues, you know, feeling unloved, unwanted. And I haven't yet talked about boredom. Boredom, which can also be a lack of challenge, a lack of expansion and growth, which is lack of challenge and growth. Many men have this issue here. Why? Especially after creating a very nice ideal life, like having a wife, having kids, having a house, maybe some mortgage, but not so bad, a car, everything that one could dream of. Almost everything. Of course, we can't have everything that we want, but mostly. And yet, they start to gain weight. It's just being comfy, it's comfortable, they don't have to fight anymore, for the attention of women. But also, there's something lost. They no longer feel that they are alive. Boredom. We think about boredom like, oh God, I had to listen to that conference. Oh, it was such a long lecture. I was sleeping. We think about boredom in those terms, but boredom, most of the time, is a feeling, a lack of feeling alive. And that's when discomfort eating comes in. This eating. Boredom is a stress. It's a misconception or an idea which is not true, that boredom is absolute passivity and it's just chilling and no stress at all. No, on the contrary, boredom and lack of challenge, lack of growth, lack of something to fight for, to be alive for, is a stressor, a very strong stressor. So, what men usually do in such cases, because life has become, well, it's okay, right? Job is okay, nothing special. Yeah, there are some challenges, but it's not like you have to save the world, right? And then they start to eat because that's joy. That's a form of joy. And they start to lose lots of other aspects of joy, of feeling alive, I think it's the best expression, feeling alive. And that's when relationship problems start. They start to flirt at the job, or they start relationships outside of the marriage. Why? What do you think? Why do they do that? It's not simply for the pleasure, because what is pleasure? It's a feeling of I'm alive. There is some danger. Danger included. Does anyone find out? There's excitement. So the opposite of this boredom and boredom eating is excitement. Now remember the times when you were in love, right? You were excited. Almost everyone I know, I have ever met, they couldn't eat when they were in love. And they said that it's like I'm born again. I feel so alive. The world is different. The world became colorful again, etc. There is no boredom. There is excitement. There is this energy of life. And it's so important. I don't know how to express it, because maybe I should write it up all across the whole board. Because life, this is what we are living for. So most men have this issue. I call it boredom, but it's more than that. It's a lacking sensation that they are alive. They want life. So when they compensate for a life that they don't have, they have a life. It's not that they don't have a life, but they don't have that sensation of being alive, of having that excitement, having that purpose, having that fire, that's when eating becomes a compensation. So in most of these cases, or yeah, we can say in all of these cases, eating is a compensation. It is a compensation. It is not the real thing. It won't change anything. It may be your weight here, but it's not solving anything. It is a compensation for an emotional battle that is going on in here in the mind. And one more thing that you need to know is that in order to solve these, you need to learn about your emotional needs. Emotional needs are the alpha and omega of your energetic emotional life. So emotional needs, these are not needs that we can suppress or do as if they don't exist. They do. Oh, they do. So here are you or me, a person, man or woman. But we all have these emotional needs. For example, the need for love and acceptance. When this need is not filled, so you don't feel loved, first of all, you start with yourself, because it is ourselves usually that we don't accept and we don't love. And we expect others to love us, to accept us, so that we feel accepted. But no matter how much others will love you or accept you, if you are unable to solve it within yourself, if you are unable to establish this relationship with yourself, to love yourself and accept yourself, you will be always hungry. Hungry. You see, even the language uses this because the language knows that we are hungry for love. We will be reaching out for others. Love me, accept me, validate me, confirm that I'm worthy. We will expect it from outside, but here inside there will be a black hole, and no matter how much energy, love and acceptance we try to pull out of the world and the environment, we will always be hungry. Hunger, emotional eating, remember? Hungry for love. Hunger is unfulfilled emotion. So emotional hunger, I'm talking about emotional eating. Emotional hunger is unfulfilled emotional needs, okay? So these are our emotional needs, E-N, emotional needs. So love and acceptance. Purpose. We need a purpose. Just to live, to eat and sleep and work is not a purpose. And if your subconscious mind doesn't have a purpose, then we are doomed. It's very bad because it will try to find a compensation. It can be addictions, you name it, lots of issues. So we need to have a purpose. How many people die? Usually men, and again, men are so vulnerable in this aspect. How many men die after they go to pension? Because they used to have a purpose in their job, in their business. They used to prosper in that, for example, because they loved what they did and that's what they lived for. And they used to have kids, right? And the family which was depending on him and the money and the existence, everything. And then suddenly they have no longer anything to live for. So the job is gone, the family, kids are grown, and suddenly they find themselves without a purpose. And that's when many men die. Now, why is it that women usually are more flexible in this way? Because women have a different, more flexible attachment system. It's for their kids and to everything, usually. In general, not always. There are some very rigid women as well. But in general, women are a bit more flexible. So they find a different purpose. They can put their center of gravity to a different field, and after going to pension, they can start a new hobby, or they are more focused on their grandchildren or whatever. Men sometimes are not as flexible, and they feel like they have lost, the ground. They have lost the purpose. So start to listen to yourself. Do you feel that purpose within you? This is an emotional need, and if it's not fulfilled, that's damaging. Every emotional need that is not fulfilled is damaging. It can also lead to emotional eating. Now, challenge the feeling of being alive, as we talked about it here. Again, very important. Do you feel any challenge, excitement to wake up and there's something to look forward, because you are alive. There's something that's new, that you are discovering, maybe about yourself, maybe it's a hobby, maybe it's your business, job, whatever. So this is a need. If it's unfulfilled, the feeling for challenge, it can lead to addictions, boredom, compensating it with eating, etc., etc. Status. It can be very devastating for men, especially, to lose their status. Women are not so focused on this. Men are more focused. Maybe it's for cultural reasons. So if a man feels that his word is worthless, no one is listening to me, I'm unimportant, I have nothing to offer, I'm just, a guy, and that's it. You don't have a status within. This need for status, this need for, I have something important to offer to the world, to my family, to the people around me. I have a value. Now, women have huge issues with self-worth. So it's connected, okay? It's connected. So I have a value. I have something that is unique. And it's also a connection to your environment. So your status is a basic emotional need. Connection, oh God, connection, and that's where maybe the whole humanity, or most of the humanity, is lacking. Connection, it's not just a connection with other people, but also connection with yourself. Connection, self-love, they are actually, I didn't draw it correctly because I should have partly merge them. Connection is connection to the food, to the people around you, to yourself. Now that's an important point again. It is, so you have a relationship with food, but that is actually a relationship with yourself and with your emotions. Just look at your relationship to eating, to food and eating, and then you will see your own relationship with your emotions. Are you trying to silence them, to swallow them, to stifle them? So this connection is also a relationship with people, with yourself, because this is a reflection. Your relationship with yourself will be reflected on the relationship you have with people. So just look at your relationships. Write it down on that piece of paper. What is the common pattern of your relationship with other people? What is the pattern of your relationship with yourself? Now you know a lot of emotional needs that you have. Maybe you have already checked them on your paper, which of them are solid and which of them are unfulfilled. So look at this. Okay, so connection, privacy. So you also have a need for privacy, for your own world. And that can be a problem in families where there is a narcissistic person there, and I know some men who had relationships with narcissistic women, and that's devastating again. So there needs to be privacy. You have a need for privacy. You have a need for your own thing, That's where you are expanding. That's where you are learning. That's your own space. And what else do we have? Wait. Love, acceptance, connection, purpose. Yes, one more word. Purpose often includes a purpose not just for yourself, but above yourself. It is a spiritual purpose. It is sometimes I don't even know how to express it. You don't have to have a religion to have this purpose, but it's a purpose beyond you. It can be for the benefit of humanity, animals, the nature, the planet, whatever. But people who have that higher purpose, they will be much more fulfilled, even when they have hardships or failures, because this higher purpose will give them an extra energy, an extra boost, an extra feeling of fulfillment and life. So, and one more emotional need, the need for safety. And again, many people, men and women alike, are lacking here. Either it is the environment in which they live, the news that they are listening to, an atmosphere of fear. So they have anxiety, they have fears, so their need for safety is very strongly corrupted. And that's when eating comes in handy, because eating gives an illusion, again, an illusion of comfort, of safety, but for a very short time. And with this need for safety, we also have the need for control. Control. As I said, those people who are over-controlling or trying to control things outside usually have a lacking here. They don't have this feeling of control. They couldn't meet their own need for control, so they try to do that outside. The true sense of control comes from within. When here in your subconscious mind, your feelings are more or less free. So you are more or less accepting of your own feelings, more or less aware of your feelings. And then you can cooperate with them. You more or less know what's going on inside. Many people think they know, but they don't. And then that's where the problem is. Some people say, oh, I know everything that's in my subconscious mind. Well, I know everything about myself. I remember my past. I have analyzed myself, etc., etc. Their left brain is saying all these things. And the moment when the left brain says that I know everything, it closes the circle and closes the possibility of finding out things that we don't yet know. It becomes blind. So that's a filter. When I say I know everything about myself, that's a filter. I am only allowing things that I already know about myself in. And that's when these wreak havoc. These emotions in the subconscious, they wreak havoc. And we start to feel out of control. So, if you feel out of control, just listen to yourself, close your eyes for a moment, and listen to yourself. How much do you feel in control? For, let's say, on a scale from 1 to 10. Let's say it's, oh God, I'm feeling 3, where 1 is almost no control, 10, I'm completely in control, feeling completely in control. So my feeling is, let's say, 3. I'm not really in control. I'm not really feeling in control. What does that mean? Whoops! We go up here to the subconscious mind, where our subconscious feelings are wreaking havoc. They are causing trouble. They are fighting. Some feelings are contradicting. Some ideas, programming that are fixed in our minds are contradicting. Like, for example, our father said that, your father said that you are no good. You will never ever achieve anything. You're just whatever. On the other hand, there is a need in you, a subconscious feeling, a need for status, a need for acceptance and love. So it's all contradicting. There's a lack of self-love, lack of self-worth, self-confidence, self-acceptance, lacking of status, that sensation of status, etc. So these feelings start to cause tension, and since they are not fully owned, they are not brought up into the light, so you don't see them, you are not processing them. They make you feel out of control. That's where this 3 comes from. Okay? So just write down on your piece of paper, because this is a training now for you especially. On this piece of paper, just write down, what is your feeling of control? How do you sense yourself? How do you feel yourself? And then ask yourself, which of these needs, emotional needs, are met? You can scale them one by one. Scale your need for love and acceptance. 1 is like 0, 10 is maximum. Okay, let's say for purpose, on a scale from 1 to 10, how much would you give? How do you feel it? Free. Challenge. How much challenge do you feel in your life? How much challenge do you feel on a scale from 1 to 10? 1, 0, 10, max. Maybe you have challenge. Okay, let's say 7. Then you maybe don't have boredom issues or, eating. Then status, control, connection, safety, purpose, love, and this was, oh God, what was that? I forgot. Okay, it will come. So just write down all these numbers, okay? Write down these numbers and find out on a scale from 1 to 10, how much do you fulfill your own emotional needs? These are your emotional needs. We all need to feel our own emotional needs. If they are unfulfilled, then comes emotional eating. So, let's give an overall number to our emotional needs. Let's give an overall number. What number would you give to your emotional needs? How much do you feel they are fulfilled on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 is not really and 10, well, I'm fulfilling my own emotional needs. Now, give yourself a number, and then you will see much more clearly the relationship between your emotional needs, your feeling of being alive, your feeling of being accepted, having a worth, having a say in your own life, etc., etc., and your emotional eating problems. Now you have your habits, if you have done your homework and you were writing down your habits on your piece of paper. Now you have some habits here, some beliefs, body signals. I didn't ask you to write that down, but now you know what to look for. What are those signals that you will start to not just receive, because you are receiving them, but you will start to be able to read them after you have eliminated the noise with fasting and meditation and emotional work. Okay? Privacy. I remember. You see, that's how the subconscious mind works. You give it your instruction or ask it. Actually, you ask it. Oh, I want to remember that word. And then it comes to you. So it's privacy. And give a number to how much do you feel your need for privacy is fulfilled. Okay? So this is it. And let me summarize that for you just in a few words, and then we will finish this training. Remember to bring these two together, the body and the mind. You see, if you do the fasting, if you do everything here, but you don't address these emotional needs and you don't address these programmings, these are programs actually in the head, then you will lose weight. But the programs, the mind, will try to still compensate for all this hunger, for all this emotional hunger. And it will sabotage your efforts. It will be much harder actually to fast, because this fasting will go against the subconscious programs, right? So that's how you bring these two together, and hand in hand. Once you did this work with the mind, it will change the direction, the vector. Here, this energy that was working against you, that was trying to use your weight to, I don't know, to protect you from taking responsibility or from relationships, or just was using this as a compensation for lacking, etc. Now all this will change, and this energy, this 95% of your energy, subconscious energy, it's an immense amount of energy. This will work for you. This will come here and help you with the fasting and with your purpose. So it will change the whole dynamics of this situation, and losing weight will become natural. And maybe initially your purpose was to lose weight, but now as you bring these two together, it will change, and you will start to expand. You will start to provide yourself, fulfilling these needs, these emotional needs. You are going to grow and expand and feel alive. So for that, you need to learn to tap into your subconscious mind to a certain degree. It's very important, even for men. Usually, somehow men tend to believe that, emotions are for women. We're not so emotional. It's not so important. It is, because it is energy. These emotions, especially the unfulfilled emotional needs, they control your energy. And guys, there's nothing more sexy than a man who controls his own energy. That's when you create your own charisma. Your energy is attracting people, attracting women. It's creating your whole life. So that's why it's so important. And how can you tap into this? Now, this is a whole another lecture, but it's through self-hypnosis or other meditation techniques through which you are not just full relaxing, because people always or mostly think that it's about relaxation. It is, but it is also an awareness in that state of relaxation, awareness of your energy, and in this case, working with your own emotional energies, becoming aware of them, accepting them, processing them, understanding what they want from you, what those ideas, beliefs are that are holding you back. What aspects of your reality is actually just a fixed idea? Well, I can tell you that most of it is just a fixed idea. But you won't believe me unless you experience it through your own subconscious mind. Okay? So that's basically it. And if you have any questions or maybe more serious problems anything related with these emotional issues that you can't solve yourself or you're stuck with, then just contact me and let's have a chat about it, and maybe I can give you some tips or give you some help with that. Some of these issues are easy to solve. There are some issues that are harder not, and they need some work and they need some change, being ready to change these things within you. So if you want any help, just contact me, or have any questions, just write me or just comment below. And thank you